I remember actually the moment when I discovered my mom's charcoal set, which she probably would have let me bring it upstairs and, use it at the table. But I discovered it underneath the stairs in our house. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. And I remember pulling out this book. It was just the perspective books that they have, with the train tracks. And so
Mm-hmm.
I remember at 7 or 8 years old, doing, and I mean, I could barely read or anything, but I could see the pictures and I could see how they were doing the drawing, from one step to the next. And so I remember tracing that and wanting it to be a private moment. So I'm hiding underneath the steps, and next to the dog and, like,
Yeah.
I mean, there was no reason for me to be introverted about it or shy about it, but just testing it out to see like, is this, my calling? Of course, you don't have that vocabulary when you're that young, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember that being a moment when I'm like, oh, this is what you're going to do. So, and it always was with me all throughout, and I grew up in the 70s. And so like we had to take cooking and sewing. I begged them in high school to let me take, I'm like, I'll go into engineering. I'll do whatever I need to do. Just, I want to take shop, I want to do, these other, things. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
woodworking and all that. And no, you cooking and sewing, and
Oh,
so this is the era that I grew up in. And so I
yeah.
always felt like I was sort of like not growing. I remember my parents being concerned at the time that I was so messy and didn't care about it, because how are you going to find a husband if you can't clean house? This was good housekeeping, right? It was Beaver growing up in the 60s, it was literally, maybe a RFD, Beaver Cleaver kind of
Yeah.
um, upbringing. And that was just how things were. And so right from the start, I'm like, no, you're different than that. You're going to be doing this, whatever it takes. Right. And so I knew at some point in my life, if I was blessed enough to live long enough, that this was going to be what I was, even to the point where my husband and I were dating and talking about marriage. I'm like, you realize I don't really care about anything else. I mean, I'll live in a tent, but I am going to be an artist full time at some point. So
Oh,
if you're marrying me, then you need to just factor that into your lifestyle expectations, right? And same thing. I'm like, I'm gonna have 3 children, whether it happens biologically or I adopt them. I'm having 3 children. So if you're not in on that, goodbye, kind of thing. And so I had all these, like, and somehow he still married me, and it'll be 39 years going on. So it worked out. Yeah, he's a
yeah.
sweetheart. But
Oh.
I look back, I'm like, I wouldn't have married me. Like, I wouldn't have saying, hey, we could be starving and I'm going to spend our last dollar on paint.
Oh.
But I mean, I was that committed to it right from the start. Just like I've
Mm-hmm.
decided, I picked my death date. I've decided I'm going to die on August 31st, 2066, when I'm
Yeah.
104. And it's like you set these intentions. And I mean, realistically, I'm not insane yet. I know that that
You're
may
good.
not happen. Things will
No, you
happen.
never know. Honestly, you
But if
never
you
know.
live toward that, it makes you eat right and exercise. It makes you, do not smoke, not do whatever, so that you can, because you look around and you're like, who else do I see here who's 104? Ooh, that person's not going to make it, right? And so kind of you kind of
Yes.
make those judgments as you go, subconsciously or consciously. And so I think it's important to set your intentions. And so when I was 7 or 8 years old, whatever it was, I literally set an intention in that moment, and I remember it, that I was going to do art. So did that come? I mean, I don't think I even had the awareness or anything at that age to create that what I'm expressing now, this level of, levels of thought. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't some prodigy 7 year old, I mean, so I think it is innate. I think it is part of your DNA, but I think you have to have the passion, and then I think it's taught. Like you have to want to learn it, and you have to be a sponge and picking it up, and I think that anybody could be an artist if they have the passion to do so. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
like any of us were born with we're the only ones who can learn to turn form realistically.
Yeah.